time to go into executive session.
So moved, Mr. President.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Right, Deputy Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye, thank you. We will proceed to executive session and reconvene immediately following. Okay, and Chief Quick, would you be able to come into executive session with us? Okay, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the City of East Providence City Council meeting. Today is Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. May we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Justice. Thank you. Clerk, may we start off with a roll call?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Here.
Councilman Morato.
Yep.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Here.
Councilwoman Souza. Here. Council President Brito.
Yeah. Next item, please.
Motion to seal executive session minutes.
Motion to
Anyone?
seal the minutes, executive session.
Second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Deputy Clerk, roll call vote, please.
Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye.
Next item is the consent calendar for discussion and possible vote. Council journals, executive session minutes from September 6, 2022. Regular session minutes, September 6, 2022. Budget session minutes from September 8th, 2022. Under letters, notice of new property numbers for 50 Evergreen Drive, 97 Hospital Road, Building 1 and Building 2 and Building 3. We have tax abatements for the amount of $54.35.
Motion to approve the consent calendar as read.
Second.
Clerk, we have a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Item, please.
Next item, licenses for discussion and possible vote. If you have the appetite, I do have the motion to bundle licenses C1 through C11 and the motion to approve C1 through C11.
Should the council, anyone have any questions? The licenses on here from C1 to C11?
I do not, I just would ask that they be read so that the public knows the licenses when we get them. There's no objection. I make a motion to bundle licenses C1 to C11.
We have a motion on the floor. Licenses from C1. Would like to second that motion?
Second.
Clerk, may we have a roll call?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Clerk, you want to read those public, please?
Yes, sir. The first would be a road race by Gary Mancinian it's for Piercefield. The date of the event is June 4th, 2023, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. We have an application for a new holiday sales, Celeste Bremer. It's Maze Gluten-Free Market at 5-7 Ford Street. We have a victualling license, Class 2, new, same owner, Celeste Bremer, Maze Gluten-Free Market. Another application for holiday sales, it's new, Rafi Penna. It's 2830 Market LLC, DBA Save-A-Lot. That's at 2830 Pawtucket Avenue. We have an application for a victualling license, Class 3, which is new, Rafi Penna again, 2830 Market LLC, DBA Save-A-Lot. Application for holiday sales, which is new, Chris Rowntree, Quarles 2 Expressions, DBA Expressions. It's at 155 Newport Avenue. Application for holiday sales is new, Maria Torres, All Seasons Cafe at 365 Waterman Avenue. Victualling license, Class 3, new, Maria Torres, All Seasons Cafe, 365 Waterman Avenue. Holiday sales, new, Edgar Borellis, Francesca's 2 Inc., DBA Francesca's 2, 525 North Broadway. Application for a victualling license, Class 1, Edgar Borellis, Francesca's 2 Inc., DBA Francesca's 2. Another road race, Sean Cassidy from Mad, Rhode Island. It's going to be at Pierce Field. The event is October 15th, 2022, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And that's all of them.
Deputy Clerk for reading that off. So for those of you who just heard your company being read off, you're all set. Everything's good. And you don't stay here at this point unless you choose to do so. We do have a public hearing as well.
With one.
Yeah, right. So
Make a motion to approve all licenses read by the deputy clerk pending all requirements have been satisfied for the state or city shop.
I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Clerk, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Item, please.
Next item is public hearing, application for additional hours. This is to open at 5 a.m. Saeed Mahmood, It's American Dream of 195 Inc., DBA Sunoco at 481 Warren Avenue.
Again, this is a public hearing, so anyone wishing to speak for or against this, not right at this moment, feel free to come up and approach the podium. At the pleasure of the council first, anyone have any questions, concerns, issues? None. I will repeat, this is a public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this public hearing or for the applicant? Podium. Public hearing is now closed. At the pleasure of the council for vote.
Move to approve license as requested.
Second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. The applicant, is the applicant present? It's not present? Okay, wait. Oh, he's all set. Item number C.
C, we have a request for approval / consideration, the request of the Board of Licenses of the City of East Providence to consider granting a Class B liquor license for Centique, which is located at 136 Taunton Avenue. Did you want to
So-
speak to that?
So, Council President, I spoke with I saw the memo. I spoke with the city clerk. I know of our preview because of the location and it needs to go up to our delegates in the State House. So Chief location request, making such request as we have in the past for other businesses, and then put that on the docket for next so that we can approve it and send it forward.
So. So we're gonna table this, pending the change in the legislation that we.
But well, it'll be a resolution coming before us
Right.
to send it up.
Right, but that won't happen till January.
Right.
So is there going to be a vote on it this evening?
There'll be a motion. to table it.
Or motion just to table?
Yep.
Okay.
So motion to table until it can be submitted to the General Assembly.
And the reason for this is the councilwoman said is this is within 200 feet of any of the particular schools, so we couldn't even grant it. We wanted to maybe gotta get the General Assembly to change the law specifically for that building like we did for.
Okay, so a motion is on the floor to table for the discussion.
Second.
We have a second. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Item.
Item. We do not have any proclamations or presentations, no communications. There is no public comment signups tonight. We do not have any appointments. We are on to council members. Potential to increase the DPW budget of $225,000 to fund 3 new labor positions in Parks and Recreations. Councilman Cahoon, discussion and preliminary vote.
The discussion would be minimal. The math is based on 3 positions, 3 entry-level positions, about salary about $50,000 to start, assuming approximately 25,000 for medical / benefits, 75K times 3 is 225.
Would there also be medical?
Yeah,
Did you mention that already?
That number is fully
included.
loaded. Yeah, it's intended to be a fully loaded.
How much would this increase the taxes for the city on an annual basis?
How much it would increase? Would be $225,000.
I just wanted to clarify the process. So, we have a deadline, I think it's October 3rd. Is that correct, Madam Clerk? So this is a preliminary vote. We actually will have to advertise, as you know, any increases of the budget need to be advertised. So the last date for anyone to increase the budget is by October 3rd, so we can meet the advertising requirement. So this is just a preliminary vote, but this won't be the final vote. This is kind of just moving the process forward. I guess the councilman wanted to see if there's a support for it before we went any further, I guess.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm not doesn't even matter to me if there's support for it or not. I mean, we put it in the budget and then we can take our vote. You know? So I just want to get it added.
This is not the be and all, like if there's other people want to add to the budget, this is tough time.
Like that's what I was gonna say, 'cause we don't have to put it on as a council. We can do it during our public hearing to add at the same time.
As long as it's advertised first, your intent to intent to add to is advertised, and that deadline is October 3rd. So, and I think tonight we'll probably set another hearing date on the, so we can figure that out. So we can figure out what the timetable is for those additions or subtractions.
Councilwoman Susan, I'm doing it tonight because I had made a note 20 September of the last, so I was focused on
Yeah,
tonight. So
okay.
that's why.
Well, because I mean, I know we spoke about this and I'm in favor of supporting an increase in that department. I think the department has a lot of work that they do and they need the manning for it just across the board like other departments. My only thing is, again, I'm gonna come back to that position that the tree commission came up and they spoke about having that designated tree warden, arborist. We don't have really defined in this department, the DPW, having that on there. So I guess my question would be to the solicitor. As long as we've suggested that and advertised that position, in the budget for the 3rd, we can add it to the budget. We don't have another meeting. Okay.
Intention is tonight to discuss some hearing dates, not hearing dates, additional budget dates that we might need to plug in, but just so everyone knows, the deadline that we need to get any additions to the budget is October 3rd. We need to make the decision or then we can advertise it and then you'll have a vote. I think it's 7 days after the 3rd. Right? To approve those changes or have a public hearing and then to approve the changes. A little crazy process.
I'm just curious as the impact that it would have on the tax increase we have. Currently, we know that it's roughly about a $30 a year tax increase based on what the mayor had submitted. And how much of effect will this have? And if there's going to be any other increases as well?
It would come up to about 0.25%. So the effect on the taxpayer, I don't know, I could get that for you for the public hearing, but it wouldn't be $5, $7, probably somewhere in there. But I can get that number.
Yeah, and the other thing, Mr. President, there may be no impact or increase if there are other areas that are decreased, from the total budget. There might be other departments that have a lesser staffing. And I don't know of any right now, but as we get into the discussions, this could end up being, even though as the director of finance is saying, it may be minimal dollars, which I would think is still worth it to get the upkeep of our parks and recreation going, but it may not be that if we have other areas that we can switch.
My only concern is, and this was part of the discussion.
no, I agree.
Last meeting where we have 43 last year, we have 43 proposed this year. 43 didn't make it because from my understanding of conversations that we had, there were some employees that are out sick, there are other employees that have COVID, and there are other employees who are out some type of short-term disability, I'll say.
I believe you're correct, Council President. I think the DPW director said there was some vacancies and some positions that needed to be filled, but I thought he said they were finally filled.
Any other discussion from the council?
No.
The councilman, you wanna make a motion?
Do we need a vote for that? Thanks. All right. So, all right, just preliminary vote.
Correct, because this will allow us to get with one thing. Another meeting next time. So yes.
Okay. So move to approve the potential increase as a preliminary vote.
Second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll call? please?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
I'm going to vote aye for now. However, I'm going to see where we stand. So it's not a guarantee. moving forward. So don't be surprised if I say nay later on. So aye.
No surprise. Totally good.
Next item, please.
Next item is potential increase to the capital budget of $50,000 to fund painting and repairs to Weaver Library. Councilman Cahoon, discussion and preliminary vote.
I believe that there is a member of the public who is interested on this matter.
Is that member?
Would you
That
like to
member
speak?
present?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that you wanted to. If you don't, it's okay.
This is the same as the previous.
Oh,
vote, correct?
Same as.
That's the intent. Yes, sir.
Preliminary vote as well.
so you were here back in, was it January? Received some type of, was it a woman's award? Woman of the Week.
But as we were looking at the paint chips and everything, we realized that we think they have lead. And so we think it's important that for beauty, for the cupola, because it's a mess, but for safety, that it's time to paint the inside. It's peeling off and dropping down the chip. So we talked and said we'd ask for special money.
So, and I believe that there was an estimate, it might be a couple years old, that's on the order
Well,
of,
the estimate is brand new.
oh, is it?
We had submitted it to, I'm not sure who, and they pick the jobs that they think are most important in this amount of money, and we did not make the cut. But again, we were getting nervous because of the chips that were falling, and we did have them tested, or we tested them, and it looks like they might have lead.
I believe that the estimate was on the order of
42,000,
42,000.
yes, I
Estimate from-
remembered,
Was the estimate from a painter or?
from the city. Whoever the city
Licensed.
asks.
So if you're dealing with lead, it would have to be someone who was licensed,
That I do, yeah, probably it goes into a different pot.
and then it'd have to be all encapsulated as well.
I don't know the details. I
So,
just was
sweet.
very surprised that it had lead in it.
It also involves some light carpentry work, there's some rotted trim, et cetera.
So is this enough?
Yes, it should be. That's all part of the estimate.
So the estimate is 45 or the 50?
Estimate was 42.
42. And we're just giving it a little buffer.
I'm just being safe.
Maybe carpentry work and
I would just look into the fact as to whether or not the estimate came from either a painter or licensed, certified lead.
The amount we're using, the amount I'm telling you, was given to us
From the city.
from the city, that's how much it would have cost for the city to have it done or do it. So I'm not sure where it came from. That was the amount.
Assuming a bidding process.
Right, exactly. And we just didn't make the cut. Whatever else had to be done.
I don't have any questions. I'm good. Any other further questions from the council?
Councilman Cahoon, why not take that money from the existing unencumbered capital project? $5 million.
That's where it's coming from.
It says here that's gonna be increasing the budget, next fiscal budget, correct? We're gonna add 50,000 for the next budget.
The intent is to take it from the existing unencumbered money, which is 5 point whatever million dollars. And to add it as one of the capital projects for FY 23, which is why I'm requesting the increase to the budget that's been proposed. for capital. So to make it an FY 23 project.
that's my understanding too, that it would be capital project. I've also heard from members of the library board. Everyone seems to think this is a critical need, not only for appearance, but the lead. But I think as council president said, there should be a formal report somewhere that it isn't just someone's opinion that there's lead there, that there's a testing process and a bidding process for the painting. So we have plenty of time to get all of that.
I make a motion to approve the temporary increase in the capital and budget, the amount of $50,000 for repair and painting.
I will second that, man. Quick, may we have a vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato. Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza. Council President Brito.
Thank you, Peg.
Potential increase?
Next item is the potential increase to the capital budget of $50,000 to support installation of permanent batting cage pad at Pierce Memorial Park, similar to the others installed or being installed throughout the city's baseball fields. Councilman Cahoon, discussion and preliminary vote.
Yeah, the idea is, Glen Lyon, for example, and I'm looking at the three full-size fields, which basically Glen Lyon, Pierce Field, and, Rec. Those are our three full-size fields. There is already a concrete pad at Glen Lyon. There is one in the works at the Rec being installed. And the idea is that we would put one at Pierce Field. Currently, there is a cage at Pierce Field. Not a full. So, when I research prices for these, the prices are all over the map. The prices are based on how many stations you're looking to put in. $50,000 looked like a safe number. Looked like it was anywhere from 43 to 80K for a single station concrete pad, batting cage. So I landed on 50.
Any questions from the council? No questions from the council? Councilman, you want to?
So, move to approve for a preliminary vote, the potential increase of the capital budget of $50,000 to support installation of a permanent batting cage pad at Pierce Memorial Park.
Would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
Clerk, maybe roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye.
Next item, crosswalk signage at Bradley Hospital and Cumberland Farms intersection. Councilman Cahoon for discussion.
Just putting this out for discussion. There's a resident who lives, I like to call the peninsula, right there at the tip between Veterans Memorial Parkway and Duckett Avenue, right across from Bradley Hospital. We've had any number of conversations about that terrible intersection that's over there. The resident that I spoke with indicated that there are, I guess there was actually a fatality at that site not too long ago. Pedestrian was struck and killed crossing across Pawtucket Avenue. This resident has reached out, since they're both state roads, has reached out to DOT in the hopes that some kind of signage can be put up on either side of the crosswalks on either side. She also mentioned that there's a need further up the road at the Cumberland Farms intersection going across where the bank used to be, like right where Wampanoag Trail intersects Pawtucket Avenue. So I'm just bringing this up for a council discussion. I was hoping to get it on the radar of the administration, potentially DPW, that this is something that we can look into and maybe push on DOT a little bit and see if they can, she hasn't gotten a call back. So it seems like a reasonable request to me. She indicated that there is like crosswalk stocks or something that you can put up there that says, hey, there's a crosswalk here, slow down. So I see the Director of Public Works is coming forward.
Yeah, we can take a look at that intersection and make some recommendations to DOT and see if they accept those solutions. So we can certainly look into it. I'll get back to you.
Okay.
The report.
Yeah, I think everybody knows the danger there, right? So people coming up from Riverside toward Tuckett Avenue, if they're coming along that way and you got the people coming around the other way, it becomes like a game of chicken, right? Somebody, no one's stopping at the stop sign and they want to beat the, so it's a dangerous situation for pedestrians.
Councilman, where does Cumberland Farms fall into this?
Oh, Cumberland Farms, again, it's a
Couple
state
blocks
road.
down.
So you're several blocks up
Yeah.
from there. But same kind of situation, got a lot of
Okay.
traffic,
It's
a
a
lot of
comparison.
pedestrians, yeah.
Councilman Cahoon, the last council discussed, as you're coming up Feds Parkway towards Riverside, people taking that left to go onto Pawtucket Avenue. You really need to turn your whole body to see traffic. There was discussion at the last council of just making that so it kind of heads out almost towards that apartment complex. Maybe that's something that could be revisited and will probably help you with your Mountain Avenue traffic. You know, having people take a safer route, which would be Mountain Ave to get to Pawtucket Avenue. Because of that, so maybe that's something that can be revisited.
Yeah, I'm happy to have that conversation with them too, if they want to. My understanding was that that was a huge job and that they weren't all that excited about talking about that kind of reefer, but to Councilman Murado's point, I think he's 100% on. I definitely would like to see signage right before that gets done, because that's gonna take time, but
Sorry, I should have stood up here a little longer. Can you clarify exactly what you're,
So when you come up from Vets Parkway, heading towards Riverside at the intersection of Bradley Hospital, if you want to take a left at the lights to go towards Pawtucket Avenue, the way that intersection is designed, you really need to, even me at 51 years old, I have a hard time turning my whole body right to see oncoming traffic. I know there was discussions in the last council to actually examine that when acting town manager Perella sat here. I think the idea would have been to kind of, instead of having that sharp left, to kind of angle it more towards that apartment complex, which was part of the complaint from some of the residents at the apartment complex, that they take their life in their hands to cross that little piece of Pawtucket Avenue to get to their apartments. And I think that would potentially alleviate some of the people crossing through those other side street like Mountain.
I'm not aware of any of those alignment, changes or looking into that, but I can certainly take a look and ask city staff and try to get an idea from DOT on that. But yeah, in the meantime, I mean, we can at least review that intersection and request some additional signage and try to make it safer.
Leah, may I ask that we just add this to the next regular council meeting, so board just can tell us whatever response from DOT. I'd just like to track it until we get something back.
That'll be the.
Around crosswalks, can you look at the one that was already approved at Willow Pond?
It was, yeah, so that's subject to DOT funding. So they're actually gonna be resurfacing Willett Avenue, so as part of that resurfacing project,
Stripe it.
we'll make sure that that's included in their scope of work to get that straight.
If not, I can grab it. Paint a can and, a couple of brushes. I gave that midnight. Reverse vandalism.
Yeah, Councilman?
I don't like that.
Next item, enforcement of illegal motorized vehicles / mini dirt bikes, Councilman Morado and Councilwoman Souza for discussion.
Thank you. So this has been on the agenda for a few weeks, and I see that the police chief is present today, and I want to thank him for making himself available. Thank you, Chief.
So Chief, while you're up here on a separate incident, on a separate resolution that I have on here, can we segue into the resolution for the body cams as well?
Yeah.
While he's up here, so he doesn't have to.
Chief, one of the issues that we've encountered throughout the summer have been these motorized vehicles that are not licensed to be driving streets. Some of them are, so without a license, one being inappropriate on the streets too. And they've been nuisances right along summer for a lot of residents. And they haven't felt like there's been any action taking place based on the ordinances that we've passed, where policing is, pulling them over, getting them off the street, taking them, off the street and housing them wherever they house it. So we're just looking for some feedback because, we know that the police are out and we see them. So it's more of allowing the people to know what is it that the police department has been doing to help mitigate some of these issues.
We have, I checked 2022, and the majority of these were during the summer. We seized 8. Would I like to see that number higher? Yes, of course. It's a difficult thing to police. Oftentimes, these ATVs or dirt bikes will not stop for the officer. They'll, especially up in the Rumford area, behind Kimberly Rock Field, happens all the time. We take off in the bucket. We get calls frequently up there. It's always a cost benefit analysis. How aggressively we try to apprehend them. Are we putting others in danger by doing that? We try to stress to the rank and file, get whatever identifying information you can and follow it up. Because this does allow us to go take their vehicles. And we're really trying to espouse a zero tolerance attitude. Occasionally, there has been some discretion used in certain situations. But the overwhelming majority of the time, we instruct our officers to no brakes, seize it. So that's kind of the position we take right now.
I appreciate that, and
Mhm.
to know that you have seized some, so it's not. Only
Yes, and I think what we're seeing is prior to the passage of the ordinance last year, we did see some of the illegal dirt bikes, ATVs that ride like in Providence and Cranston on the main road, really being disrespectful to motorists, putting them in danger. Once we passed this, we did seize a few last year, and that seemed to really kind of slow down. Where now we see more of the folks that are looking to get to, still legal, but looking to get to, use the streets to get to ride in like a reserved area. That's a different kind of person we're dealing with. Different challenges trying to get to them also. But that's the majority of what we're seeing now.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Mhm.
Appreciate the update.
So those are,
Oh, I'm sorry.
sorry, go ahead. no, I was just gonna say, so those aren't what you're seeing now is not the people who are out there being menace to our roads. They're essentially trying to get from one location to another location, primarily say, by Kimberly Rock in that back area, because
I mean, there's
Heard
still
of.
different type of menace, right? So what we were seeing before and what they were seeing in Providence and Cranston are groups of 10, 20 riders
Mhm.
taking over roads, taking over intersections, putting people, in danger that way. What we're seeing now is single riders, one or two, trying to use their dirt bike in, a place they shouldn't be, but not necessarily on the road either.
That's my question, Mr. President, Chief. Is there anything that we could do with the ordinance that would help augment it, that would help enforcement, or if there's?
I have not received any negative feedback about the ordinance, especially from my prosecution unit. They have not relayed to me any loopholes, gaps, or anything like that. If that does arise, I'd be the first one to, speak with the council about trying to rectify that.
Chief, you said you seized 6 or so of these. What do we do with them? Do you keep them permanently? Do they get returned after
So
a
no,
while?
what happens is it goes through the municipal court process. It's like a forfeiture process. And some are pending and some we have been awarded, and we're trying to do that now. What I would like to do is just destroy them. Drain the fluids. I was just talking about it with Director Borges, having a, front end loader come over and make sure nobody ever drives those again.
Any further questions? Further question? So before you leave, at the pleasure of the council, just want to ask if we can move up the resolution regarding police volunteers while you're up here. Mr. Matthias is going. So that being said, we're going to move on to
Resolutions,
resolution.
number 2. In resolutions, it's the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Axon Enterprise, Inc. for body cameras and tasers for the police department. Sponsor is Council President Brito and Councilman Cahoon.
Councilman Cahoon, I don't know if you want the chief to just go right into it. Chief, while you're up there, you want
Sure.
to take it and run with it?
But just to give you a little background of how we got here now, about 2 years ago, we went out to RFP for body cams. We received responses from 5 vendors. We met with the vendors. We checked out their offerings, the products. From there, we narrowed it down to 2 vendors. We piloted 2 vendors, Axon, we going with, and another company. We tried each product for about 30 days. The overwhelming response from the officers that tried the 2 different companies was that Axon was the superior product. From their offerings, the ease of use, their evidence platform where we store our videos and data. So we made the decision to go with Axon. That was quite a while ago. There's been a little delay because there is a statewide grant that is about to be awarded very soon. We'll find out how many cameras will be reimbursed for. But if we moved on it back then, we wouldn't be able to get reimbursed retroactively. So it's kind of been on the back burner, but we are about to hear, actually the whole state is about to hear how many cameras. We asked for 66 cameras. We asked to be reimbursed for 66 cameras. That's $1,750 per camera. We hope to be reimbursed for. We're hoping in the coming weeks, we're going to hear about that. So the contract itself is a 5-year contract with Axon. It is through the state of Rhode Island master price agreement with Axon. We're looking for 66 body cams. That'll equip all of the officers who are on the road every day with their own body cam. That will also provide a spare pool of body cams. So if we have folks that don't normally wear body cams on a day-to-day basis, like myself, if I was to, or a member of my command staff was to work, say, a detail at a concert, we'd be able to grab a spare cam, put it on, and go. So it's a 5-year contract for the 66 body cams and 66 tasers. We bundled tasers into this. This would give us the latest technology from Axon. We've utilized their tasers for many, many years now. This would get us 66 new Taser 7 tasers. So for 5 years, it's a little over $800,000. It's broken up into 5 yearly payments, about $160,000 per year. We're hoping to be reimbursed just over $115,000 by the state per year. The state has committed to 5 years of reimbursement. So we're hoping to get what we asked for. Some of the things we've included with the body cam program, we will get unlimited storage in the Microsoft Azure Government Cloud. We went with a couple features to help eliminate officers forgetting to turn their cams on. We have a device, a signal device. When an officer turns their lights on, they'll automatically activate their camera. When an officer draws their weapon, it'll automatically turn their camera on. Stressful situation. If the officer hasn't already turned his camera on, once he's forced to draw his weapon, it'll automatically turn his camera on, and officers around him, it'll turn their camera. So everyone's camera will be on. We've gone with an auto tagging, which saves our officers time in categorizing each video they record. The Axon product talks directly to our computer-aided dispatch and will automatically tag the video, and that comes in handy when it's for retention. So if it's tagged as, a neighborhood complaint, we're not going to retain it for years. If it's a serious felony, it'll be tagged as such. It will be saved according to retention policy. Also, part of this contract is a refresh program. Our body cams will be refreshed with new cameras, the latest and greatest technology, twice during that 5-year period. 2.5 years, and at the 5-year mark, we'll get new body. I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Do you have any questions?
Chief, you talked about reimbursement on
Yep.
the actual cameras itself. How about the tasers?
Tasers would not be reimbursed. That is something we've been paying for many years. We've equipped our officers with tasers for probably, let's say, at least the last 10 years. We're just bundling them together for savings with the body cams and getting the newest, best technology taser out there.
Two questions, if I may. The first is the auto tag feature that you described. Will that assist us with separating footage for, say, channel 12 or somebody submits an APRA request and you're able to say, no, this is, evidentiary or this is, releasable. Will that assist you in doing that?
Absolutely. It'll save time. Mainly it saves time for the officer because they would have to manually do it and we'd still be able to use it for that purpose after they manually do it. But this will eliminate them from having to manually do that. And I'm glad you brought that up. One thing I failed to mention is we're also purchasing Axon's redaction assistant as part of this package. And that automatically through AI redacts plates, redacts. So if an officer is sitting in their cruiser, it's taking video of their tablet, which oftentimes has sensitive information, automatically redacts that, redacts faces. So it makes the redaction process and meeting those public requests much more seamless because you don't have to sit there and make sure you're redacting everything. For the most part, everything's already redacted. So you're just kind of checking up on it.
I asked, there was a city not that long, it was 15 or 16, I think it was Seattle, was getting walloped by APRA requests and they didn't have a way to handle it and they kept paying fines because they couldn't separate, the footage. So, question 2, and it's kind of a 2-part question. How do you think this is going to, having body cams actually on our officers, how do you think that's going to impact what Councilman Murata is always talking about is our accreditation and B, insurance? Like what is the trust's take on these, if any?
I'm not sure. I know the trust is for them. I don't know if it'll affect insurance rates for the city. That I'm not aware of. But, by and large, the whole state and include me in that, see the value, the law enforcement community sees the value in these cams. I think the rank and file has obviously there's it's a big change.
Sure.
And we understand that. For example, Providence has had body cams for years now. We engaged them about their experience with body cams. We had some of our rank and file sit in on that Zoom call. The message was when they first brought up body cams, everybody, no. Now, at that point, they can't imagine going on the road without body cams. While we were piloting, one of the first days we were piloting the Axon product, we had a motor vehicle stop in which the operator made some wild accusations against the officer who stopped the vehicle. Just complete falsehoods, almost on day one. And we were able to look at the video and say, this is complete nonsense. There's a lot of value, to the public and to our officers, keeping them both, safe.
I know this has been the 20 for 20 chief's promise to include 20 other check marks, and this was one of them. As a union president, I have to ask, the union's on board with these cameras, correct?
We've engaged the union. We've provided them with the statewide policy that has been developed that we all have to abide by and then to take the funds. haven't heard any negative feedback about, policy, the way we'll be implementing it. So
Is there any way to find out if the union is on board with this? They probably are. I just want to make sure that they are. Thank you. I didn't want to ask you to come up here, but thank you for that response. And thank you for also, because that was gonna be my next question. I'm sure you are adopting the state's policy.
Yeah.
And the only way to get that funding is to do so. So thank you for that.
We found it to be a well-vetted policy that involved vetting by a lot of the stakeholders that have an interest in law enforcement and body cam. I think it's a pretty fair policy.
Any other further questions?
Oh, good luck.
Appreciate it.
Councilman Cahoon, you want to phase that into a motion?
President, I move to approve the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract with Axon Enterprise for body cameras and tasers.
Would anyone like to second?
Second.
Have a second on the floor. Deputy Clerk, may we have a vote?
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Thank you, council.
Next item, community meeting to discuss community and neighborhood concerns to be held at the Weaver Library on September 28th, 2022 at 7 PM. Councilwoman Souza for an announcement.
Thank you. So this is just an announcement to residents who have been recently sending emails with some concerns about various topics throughout the city that they would like to discuss in an open forum with myself and anybody else in the city who would like to join. I know one of them has to do with, again, the mice and rats in the city, in particular in this neighborhood that has been problematic, and they've reached out for some conversation and haven't heard back. So this is just really a follow-up to the community to have an open, engaging conversation on what the issues are, what we can do to mitigate some of those and work collectively to move forward and address them. I will say that some of the stuff that the council has been doing is through legislation. And so through that legislation, it needs enforcement to take place, right? So again, it will be just looking at is enforcement being done? Do we need to clean up some of that language to make it more clear cut for whose role it is to do what task, or has the authority to go in and see certain areas and then report back and then be accountable, let's say, to the community with those results in a timely manner. I think a lot of it just comes with being timely response. So next Wednesday at 7 o'clock, Viva Library will be holding a community meeting. In the event that their space is not available, then that meeting will be here at City Hall on Thursday, since there are later hours at City Hall. Just double check that there's availability. And that is it.
Councilwoman,
Thank you.
next item.
Next item, ordinance for second passage for discussion and possible vote. The first one is a first and final passage, ordinance of the council of the city of East Providence appropriating $150,000 for the support of Crescent Park Carousel and facilities, as well as $225,000 for the completion of the accompanying concession facility.
As discussed at the last budget workshop, this is a key component for Riverside and the city. This project needs to keep moving forward, especially with the stabilization of the carousel and the build of the Blunt Seafood shell and the ice rink. Unfortunately, with COVID and everything that has delayed the project, the prices have gone up, not only in materials, but in everything else in the aspect of building. What I'm asking is it's not for a budget increase, it's to reallocate funds from this current unencumbered capital improvement budget, which is just over $5 million, and to reallocate 375 towards that project, 150 towards the enhancement to the Crescent Park stabilization project, and 225 towards improvements related to the concession or for related infrastructure or building. I don't think it's fair that we have to rely on the potential to, for grant funding to complete that project. I think that should be an absolute yes, and, shouldn't have to wait for the maybe or could be. It should just be something that we should be supporting. I see Tracy is here in the audience if anyone has any questions.
Any questions from the council?
No, I have none either.
You want to raise that into a motion?
I make a motion for approval ordinance of the City Council of East Providence appropriating 150,000 for the support of Crescent Park Loop Carousel and facilities, as well as 225 for the completion of the accompanying concession facility.
So before we proceed with a vote, this is a public hearing. So anyone wishing to speak for or against this first and final passage, please approach the podium. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this first and final passage, please approach the podium. If not, public hearing is now closed at the pleasure of the council. There is no questions or concerns with the council. There is a motion on the floor by the councilman. Would anyone like to second the motion?
I'll second that motion.
We proceed with a vote.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon. Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito. Next would be continued business, budget session, review of the administration's FY 23 proposed budget. First is the city council.
So we can review the city council. If we have the, we want to go on and proceed with capital requests, talk about that this evening, we can do that, or we could just reschedule the rest for another.
I'm in favor of rescheduling.
So right now, I mean, I like to see what at least city council budget, that's the only outstanding administration budget that we have not received, not reviewed at this point. But I just put the capital budget on there in the sense that if we decide to go in that direction, it's on here. If not, it's an option. At the pleasure of the council.
I'm in, title, engaged in doing the city council and then, setting a date for the capital.
It was a pleasure. How's the council?
That sounds like a good idea to me.
All right, very good. Let's proceed with the city council budget. It's on page 13 for those of you following along in the budget book. So currently, as it stands, last year's 2021, 2022 budget for the city council was $180,410. That included $157,675 for purchase of professional services, $15,300 for salaries, supplies of $2,500, other purchase services, $3,200, benefits, $1,735, total of $180,410. This year's proposal is an increase from $180,000 to $187,000. Purchase of professional services, $164,750. Salaries, $15,300. Supplies, $2,500. Other purchase services, $3,200. Benefits, $1,735. Which gives us a total of proposal of $187,485.
Can I just point out, Mr. President, that
Please.
benefit is like in Medicare benefits, it's not health insurance. Lest anyone think that.
Good point. Okay, the discussion's on the floor with the council at this point in time.
So I just had a question, in regards to the salary, in the budget. So I know that, the councilman, had, Cahoon had wavered his stipend and his council salary during his term. He didn't want it. Is that being factored into this 23's, number? For the decrease, because it looks like,
Assume it is.
Yeah, based on, yeah,
'cause
if anything, it's, let me see. Yeah, it's the same number. It's 15,300.
so my only, I guess, thinking through, we're in an election year, right? And so potentially we're all new, we have some that are not coming back, and potentially some that won't come back, depending on how the elections go, right? So is it really ideal to be starting off and telling during a new cycle what that council pay should be versus, it should be less than what this council started with?
No, I think it should be inclusive to it.
So I think if, in all fairness, whatever this council started their salary at, whatever that was back in 2008, 17,
17,426.
should be what the upcoming year, and then if they choose then to do what they will for the remainder of their tenure during budget season, then that's their preview. I don't think it's really fair to go backwards to somebody, like you're starting the job already below what the minimum was.
Actually, based on, it shouldn't be seven. It was for some apparent reason.
I think it was in the 20, I
Should
looked back
be.
at,
Well, I included the 3,500 to it. Actually, 18,800.
Cut a lot. In the first year, we took out phone stipends and some other items.
there was a lot of,
Right, but I'm going on salary.
Yeah.
So if we would have factored that back in, I just added the 3,500.
and does that still include, and now is that, correct me if I'm wrong, in the charter, it speaks to the additional stipends for the chair and the vice chair, correct?
Additional.
So as the president, and the vice president, there's an additional stipend that comes with that role.
So the president gets just 4,000. And the remaining council gets 3,500.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, there's no stipend.
There's no, get anything additional, just the 500.
Right, right, I knew there was a difference. I just wanted to make sure that that was still in, that it was
Yeah.
all being reverted back to when we took
Yes.
office, is my point.
Or we can make sure that's the case.
So whatever the last 2017's budget for the salary portion of the council, that should be. And that would just, I would just say, again, not to increase, and I don't think that $2,000 is gonna make a dent in our percentage, but I would even say we just move the monies, take it out of one of the, the line of professional services minus that difference and put it into the salary or whatever. We can move the monies around with the current budget proposed in our
And I've
office.
got that in my notes, so when we have a public hearing, I'll remind the council that, and I'll get the exact number. I think it's 18,000.
18,800.
Makes sense. 15 plus 35.
I'm definitely in support of that, Councilman.
So, Mr. Solicitor, do I need to take the avenue that our councilman took with the resolution for one of our next meetings, or can we just say it, and discuss it like we have before and add it?
Add to this, we'll have to add it. We do a motion.
Right.
And we'll add it to the average.
That was my only, and then I guess, coming off a previous conversation that we had with funds, and how they're used in the council, amongst council members. One of the things that I think is important and could be used, with this professional service is council having an ability to have an intern of sorts doing legal work or doing research for the council. And would that be something that council would then just use out of that bucket, that professional services? Or would we say, well, let's create a line item saying we're gonna have some legislative aid type position for the council on a part-time basis, 18 hours a week. It's non-benefited position where they're just able to do some of the work that the council may or may not need to perform their duties in the next 4 years. Again, not adding to the budget, but utilizing some of those funds in the professional services. Either it's you break it down and add a line and say, this is specifically dedicated for this service, or, do we have to come up here and ask each and every one, is it okay that I use somebody to do legislative work or research for me? And we pay it out of that.
So the purchase professional services, the legal number, we can see that's clear. The other purchase professional services, that's the audit, correct, Malcolm?
Correct.
And that line probably shouldn't play with a whole lot, right? I mean, because that's based on contract pricing, yes?
So we get a fixed number for the audit.
But I'd be fine with playing with the other line, reducing that.
We're just breaking it up into,
Or making
Yeah.
a separate line, or, yep.
Isn't that what the mayor had talked about and discussed the last time he was here as well? Where he's suggested or recommended cutting the salary of the clerk. Whereas cut back on the clerk's salary. and also had the-
No, that was
I think it's
just,
addition.
that was just to cut the clerk's salary. And I'll bring up that point when the conversation's over. to include with these other ordinances that we discussed tonight, because I did request that be restored to its original, salary of what we voted on. So I would like that also to be put to a vote through the processes that we discussed tonight with the other items.
So advertised, is that what you're saying, Councilman? Advertised as an addition.
I mean, when, does that need to be advertised? I mean, that's a proposed budget.
That would be an increase to the clerk's budget, right? But I don't know that we necessarily need to take a vote on it.
Well,
Agree that we're gonna advertise it and then vote on it later.
It's proposed to cut.
Mhm.
So we would be increasing, I would think.
Right, the proposed increase, but, I mean, Councilman Morado just brought it up.
No, it needs to be formally advertised by the third.
But we do need a preliminary vote before it can be advertised. Okay, okay, all right. I was
As long
getting
as
it.
we know it.
Right. And that was the point that I was trying to make, like, the councilman took that extra step to do that, but it's not a technical step that we need to take. We can just say it and, right. And then just take note and then make that assessment.
But everyone has to agree to
Oh, yeah, at the same time. Correct.
vote on the additions.
Right, but not to advertise it. So that's all I got for you.
So then, to summarize what you're proposing, Councilwoman Souza, it would be to restore the salary line to what it was before this term.
Correct.
Which makes sense, but not to propose that as a potential increase to the council budget, simply to find the funds in another way.
Reallocate within the budget itself.
And then also to discuss using part of that purchase professional services line for that part-time position.
Or, yes, some other services. So basically clearly defining professional services that the council may or may not want to use, where it's more transparent. To speak to the council president's comments last meeting.
And I would even go further to say that we'll have to check and balances when it comes time for professional services that it should be voted on as a council, as a body. That would have to be done through a resolution.
I think that's an ordinance actually, no,
Yeah, that's all.
changing the council rules.
Ordinance. or resolution,
Right.
or an ordinance.
And again, I wouldn't presume to want to make that decision when we're in the middle of transition. I would allow whatever the next sitting body is to discuss that amongst themselves and have the opportunity to make that decision for themselves, but to give them the option.
That would be.
Mm.
the whole year. Any other further discussion?
Well, not, no, they could change their council rules on the first day of office.
So then they would have to change.
Yeah.
It could, although I would advance that there are 2 months before that takes
Right.
place, right? We approve budget on the first of November.
Mhm.
Right, so there will be that time that presumably can be used throughout November and December. I would think if you had lame duck members of the council, they probably wouldn't be all that active in legislative affairs at that point, but I think it probably behooves us to have some sort of policy or rule in place, and if the council wants to change it, whatever they like. So perhaps Mike is part of the approval process of the budget. We can come up with recommended team that's, and can you hear me? Is this picking me up all right? 'Cause last time I have this issue where I sit back and I'm sorry. So if we've got a recommended change to the council rules that calls for council approval of, I don't even know, would you call them discretionary spending lines under the council budget? I'm not sure exactly. Purchase professional services under the council budget. Is what I'm saying makes sense, Mike? Are you able to translate that into words?
I'm right.
Okay. And like I said, if the next council wants to monkey with that, that's their prerogative.
Any other questions? All right, we're gonna, capital budget, we're gonna move to another time.
Yes.
Want to schedule any future budget meetings? That's on here, right? You can look at
President,
it. Yes, sir.
um, there is you have to advertise for the first public hearing. I'm gonna get the timeline.
You have a date that you want to
No, it's,
have it by, or?
she's got the ad, it's just got to go in the paper 10 days before the first public hearing. And then at that public hearing, that's when you will propose all your changes. That'll be re-advertised. You'll come back to the second public hearing and approve it. If you want, I believe you could have a third. It'll get a little tight, but I think we can.
Sure.
I'd prefer to just do it all on the same night. I don't know about the rest of you.
advertising deadlines for the additions, we have to have everything in by the October 3rd. Between now and October 3rd, we'd have to have a good sense of what any kind of additions or subtractions, I guess, the council wants to make, so.
Third is a Monday.
And then I know that the advertisement has to go in 10 days prior to the public hearing, correct?
I send advertisements in, deadline is noon on a Tuesday for advertising date on a Thursday. Next meeting is October 4th, next scheduled meeting.
So the 27th is good for me at 6:30. Well, actually. that's not gonna make-
How about the 20?
Wait, you're the 27th or 28th?
Oh, yeah, the 20, yeah,
I think the 28th is your community.
the 28th is my community meeting, yeah.
For. Okay, capital.
27th works.
That's Tuesday. I'm not good on the 27th. What are we gonna do on the 27th? We're just gonna review the capital budget? That's it? Nothing else on that night?
No.
I'm okay if it
Well, we're
going.
gonna need, we're gonna need addition. We have to advertise it first.
And the Tuesday, that 27th is the last night that we can do that? To get the advertisement in time?
Oh, and the timeline that was sent out, is if the council is seeking to increase the expenditure, anything relative to the mayor's budget, or sort of new expenditure then that was not in the mayor's budget, then those items need to be included in the advertisement along with the tax rate and time and place of the public hearing on the budget. That's Charter Provision 5-11. So in order for us to meet those deadlines, including the 10-day advertisement, Malcolm, we have it backed out to October 3rd, which I think is correct.
We'd have to have the meeting on the,
No, we have to have the advertisement in by October 3rd. So we have advertisement.
I don't think that would give you enough time. You had the advertisement on the 3rd. 10 days.
Goes in on the 3rd.
It'll be, if I send the advertisement on the 3rd, it's not advertised until the 6th. And that's with the post. The deadlines for the journal are similar. They're much, much more expensive.
So you have a state law requirement that I'm not taking into account the 10-day that we, right, Malcolm?
Right.
10 business day.
10 days.
So it's
Yeah.
10 days.
10 days.
Thank you.
The thing is, the average is already set. Because that's what the mayor had proposed, his revised budget. So that's what's going in the paper. So you can have that anytime. And at that first meeting, that's when the council will make any proposed increases or decreases. So you have to be careful because if you count backwards, it has to be done by, say, the 23rd or 24th. But it's got to be in the paper if 5 days before that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, it would have to be in the paper, say the 19th.
Yeah, so you can only add after the public hearing, the first public. Once that's concluded, then you can say that again, right? So once you have the public hearing on the mayor's proposed budget, after that's concluded, then you can do it at that meeting, but after that's concluded, then you can add to that. And that needs to be advertised.
So the first, and when is that? That date.
Anytime, as long as it's advertised. So it's 7 days. Not less than 7 days after the meeting.
So,
The state is 10.
so is it,
So we just to be fair, we've just used the 10 days, so we're covered that. We should just use the 10 days. That's a part thing we should make that. But, yeah, so.
so if we, at the October 4th meeting, is our first hearing where the proposed mayor's budget has been advertised and that's on the agenda. If you can make changes at that time, increases or decreases, right, in that hearing, then we would have enough time to advertise with the 10 days to then bring it back to a final hearing on the 18th, the next council meeting, which would still get us a deadline before the end of the year. correct?
That would be correct, but right now you cannot make the October 4th notice.
Advertisement went in today for that meeting. The advertisement for the October 4th meeting, my ads went in today.
For the public hearing?
In general, my ads for my public hearings for my ordinances were sent in today by noon because that was the deadline for the October 4th meeting.
Okay, but there is the one that I sent you that came from the state. That was approved. That's the one that had 10 days.
Yes, but we haven't discussed any of that.
That hasn't gone in.
That hasn't gone in yet. I'm just saying the deadline for the October 4th meeting was today at noon for any advertisement
Okay.
at all.
So where's that put up?
I mean, if you want.
So it's 10 business days, not including weekends.
Oh, it's been 10 days.
Well, because from today to the 4th is more than 10 days. Four.
Chris, We're talking about two separate deadlines. Malcolm's trying to meet the 10-day requirement for the state. We have to- And that's just 10 days. So the council has a 7-day advertising requirement for the public hearing. So if we go with the 10 days, we're obviously meeting the 7 days,
Right.
using his number. So yes, that's to be safe. So I don't know. If Malcolm goes into tomorrow,
I'll reach out to the Journal and East Bay and see if either can assist me in getting what you would like advertised.
When can we meet? Discussion.
assuming that the advertising goes in, the first public hearing is gonna be October 4th. Okay? You meet, Malcolm's deadline, you meet the charter deadline. That's to have a public hearing on the mayor's budget. After that date, or at that meeting, you need to advertise again. for petition. That is for, sorry, 5 days after that.
That brings us to what? 9?
5 days for the second.
So before inserting
the
any
second.
additional items or increasing any item or appropriation, it must be caused to be public by notice setting forth the nature of the proposed increases and fixing increasing time not less than 5 days. So assuming that you add after the mayor's budget,
Mm-hmm.
you know what those additions are. We've got 5 days from, we gotta set a meeting. Set a date where at least it's advertised for 5 days before you actually finally vote.
Okay.
Late breaking information that post has indicated that they're paying attention to them.
Well, that-
Edition.
So that
Is
doesn't,
it text?
Uh-huh.
Oh, nice.
I was just gonna email her.
so
Wow.
that would have no
CNN.
bearing on the capital improvement budget.
Oh, it's everything.
That's everything.
Do you want to increase the capital budget?
By my calculation, it would have to be in the paper by Saturday, the 24th, be able to make the October 4th meeting.
They are, so he just said they will accept my advertisement tomorrow, which means it'll be in the paper on. Thank you. I just closed my calendar.
So we're setting the meeting then for October.
The Public hearing will be October 4th,
Fourth.
set with the regular, along with the regular council meeting.
Would not that work best for you? I don't, I'm,
Yeah, I
I
just.
think
wanted to make
Timeline
sure
works, and that gives you plenty of time to make changes and re-advertise.
yes, then.
that,
So assuming we're gonna want October 4th on the final public hearing of the major, mayor's budget. If you guys have proposals to add to the budget, I've got a list of what you have additional. You want to get those to me and Leah. We can have it in at least the form that you need to put it in. And we can vote on it. And then if it was passed, then we'll advertise again. So I would ask that you get those to me by.
So
So that would be we could do that during the workshop on the 27th. Yeah, I think we should. With the capital, since we're not talking about capital improvement.
I got a long standing appointment that I got on evening of the 27th.
So, solicitor,
I can make it to the 26th. Just look at
The 26th, I should be able,
Good, 26th.
That's a Jewish holiday.
I mean, you're not gonna be here?
No, I'm just
Oh,
talking
okay.
about
26.
26, I'll get my shift covered.
26, I'm okay. I'm good. Councilman? Yeah, that'd be great. And I appreciate flexible
What time?
anytime.
6:30?
That's good.
We're gonna post that as a budget workshop. And capital.
It's so those capital advertisements, I can, for the 4th, I can place them in on Tuesday, the 4th, and I have time to cancel them by Wednesday.
Hold on a second.
I just want my. So what I normally do is I advertise like the first passages and that go for second passage. I will advertise. If it does not pass, I email them in the morning and I have them take it off so I can prepare. We can have that other ad prepared for all the additions that they're looking for. And I can have it in on the 4th in the morning for that meeting. If they do not pass, we can.
So if I could get the additions, assuming that.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
So if we can give Leah an addition by, say September 30th, which is a Friday. Is that okay? And we'll have it for a meeting on. We can just vote through those. Some of them we just voted on.
And all of those other capital will be there as were proposed before.
Correct. You're gonna deal with those on the.
We're gonna deal
26th.
with those on the 26th.
So if there's any additional capital, I'm gonna need those by the. What's that? The deadline for addition, 30th.
And then we'll tackle anything after the 4th.
Like, I'm assuming, I don't know, I mean, I'm just assuming that if you add things to the budget, assuming that they all want it, they all pass. This is time to then do the re-advertisement, saying this is what the mayor proposed, this is what the increase is by the council, final numbers, and then you can.
What we've done historically is that on the 4th, we'll have a meeting and if there are any changes that are outside that, the city clerk has already placed the ad and they're holding the spot. All we're gonna do is change a couple of numbers so we can update those numbers, and we've done that in the past, and send it after.
Either way, we can be fine. 26th and the 30th are two most important. For my. We can get it all done. But we have a couple additions anyway, so.
You know, set with the scheduling. We can proceed, move on. What else?
Thank you for that.
Okay. Next item, please. Thank you, Malcolm.
Next item is going to be new business, mayor communications, items for announcement and discussion with Director Gonzalez.
Evening, everyone. I'll be really quick. So Meredith Bonds Harmon, our acting library director, was appointed new director of the East Providence Library. Meredith has been with the East Providence Public Library for 16 years, and before that, the library at Flanagan campus of Community College of Rhode Island and the Seatown Public Library. Welcome, Director Harmon to the library. Thank you. Harmon. Very quick.
Next item, reports of other city officials, report of city solicitor, claims committee report, and litigation report.
It's me. I was talking to Councilman Cahoon. That's right. The claims committee met in executive session, and they approved all the claims. They approved all the recommendations of the Director of Public Works. I won't read the numbers. This document will be available tomorrow if you want. I'll post it. There were many claims, so I didn't want to waste the council's time, but if anybody wants to know the exact amounts, we can get that from the city clerk tomorrow. We'll have that. On the collective bargaining agreement, with firefighters 850, the council did meet in executive session to review and vote on the tentative agreement. I'm pleased to report that the tentative agreement with local 850 was approved by unanimous vote of the city council. Now that the tentative agreement is approved, the parties will be working on a red line version of the contract, which I'll bring back before the council for final approval. But I just want to take the opportunity to thank the members of the leadership of the firefighters union who worked really diligently over the last 5 or 6 months to come to a new 3-year firefighters agreement, which I think not only has some substantial savings, but some fair wage increases as well. And that'll be on the next, hopefully we'll get the red line contract to you within the next 30 days.
Next item, resolutions. For discussion and possible vote, resolution proclaiming October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, sponsored Councilman Morado and Councilwoman Souza.
Thank you. So I'm just going to read the resolution for October's Domestic Violence Awareness Month. We're slightly a few weeks early, but I think better to get that out there, the awareness out there sooner and later, and let people know that there are resources available for anybody who's in any unsafe situation and needs support or a place to go to, that they can reach out, and that the city has been working collectively with different agencies and has safe homes that are available through our outreach programs, that anybody who feels like they need the services, please don't be hesitant to reach out to our law enforcement and other agencies in the city that are here to help you. You're not alone in any of this. So the pleasure of the council. Whereas home is where basic needs should be met, such as love, safety, comfort, acceptance, and sanctuary to grow as an individual. And whereas according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, an average nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. During 1 year, this equivocates to more than 10 million people. And whereas women are not only targets, men, children, and members of the LGBTQIA+ community, the elderly, family pets, and responding law enforcement officers are accounting amongst those victims. Whereas according to the Rhode Island Coalition Against Domestic Violence, on any given day in Rhode Island, 52 people call a domestic violence hotline. 44 women and children spend a night in a domestic violence shelter, and 34 people seek domestic violence services throughout without entering a shelter. Whereas domestic violence costs an estimate of $8.3 billion annually in medical care, mental health services, and loss of productivity in jobs, women, men, children living with domestic violence, suffering high rates of physical abuse, chronic health problems, depression, PTSD, attempted suicide, substance abuse, behavioral problems with children, homelessness. And whereas by definition that the domestic violence abuse includes physical, sexual, social, physiological, emotional abuse, as well as threats of violence or economic control. There are behaviors intended to intimidate, frighten, terrorize, humiliate, stalk, track, manipulate, blame, coerce, incur, and injure someone. Whereas communities, including East Providence, have experienced continuous domestic disturbance issues, some including violent deaths, displacement of children in our systematically broken system. Now, there be it resolved that the City of East Providence City Council proclaims the month of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in East Providence, and urge our citizens to observe this month by becoming aware of the tragedy of domestic violence, supporting those who work towards an end, and participate in all community efforts. Be it there further resolved that the City of East Providence City Council will be a strong advocate in its legislative efforts to improve community resources through stronger partnerships and services regarding domestic violence. And so those who are victims shall live to be survivors, free from shackles of abuse, end the cycle of damage, support healing both now and for generations to come. And I know that the council has always been very supportive for, in our community, and I just want us to continue thinking of ways how we can further support our community in dealing with all areas of domestic violence in our community. So if there's no comments by the council.
Just real quick, as someone that grew up in that environment, we've come a long way with the laws in this state, but I know that there's still a lot more work to do to protect victims of domestic violence. Children are also victims when they have to witness, their parent go through something like that.
There's no other further discussion. Councilwoman, you want to raise that into motion?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Make a motion to approve the resolution claiming October Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Second.
Deputy Clerk, may we have a vote, please?
Aye.
Councilman Morato, Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Next item,
Next item, introduction of ordinances for discussion and possible vote. The first is an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 18 of the revised ordinances of the City of East Providence, Rhode Island, 1998, as amended, entitled Vehicles and Traffic. The summary is Section 18-307 Glen Rose Drive on both sides between Ferncrest Drive and Lantern Lane, one-way street during the hours of 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. and 2 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. on school days. Sponsors the Vice President Rodrick.
Council President, this should be short and sweet. Was inadvertently left off the list that we previously amended at our last couple of meetings. So this is simply the same thing that we've been doing, changing the signage to coincide with the current school times. This would, in particular, is behind the Waddington School where that area has signs that need to be updated. There's nothing new to report here.
That was my error. My apologies. I forgot to add it.
Yeah, no problem.
it happens. Any further discussion? So this was a public hearing last time, if I'm not mistaken. Or was it? this
Well,
time?
it never got on the
Never got
agenda.
No, I
So,
First passage.
I put all the other ones on. I forgot this one by accident.
Yeah, no, it happens. No worries.
the councilman could,
So I would
go in his,
make a motion for first passage. Is there?
I was
Public
referring to
discussion.
Councilman Cahoon when he comes back, he can
Okay,
state his vote in the meantime.
sure.
See what.
Well,
You want the motion?
Oh, motion, I'm sorry.
So the motion would be for the ordinance and amendment of chapter 18 of the revised ordinances of the city of East Providence, 1998 is amended entitled Vehicles and Traffic. It's section 18-307. It's Glen Rose Drive, both sides between Ferncrest Drive and Lantern Lane, one-way street during the hours of 8 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. and then 2 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. on school days. That is a motion.
Second,
Okay. Deputy Clerk, may we have a roll vote, please?
yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
My old safety patrol post, Ferncrest and Glen Rose. Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Ordinance-
Next is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to borrow funds in anticipation of taxes.
Come on.
Yes, this is on there every year with tax anticipation notes, and we borrow these every January, February. This is just an ordinance. We have to put in every year. We put this in now.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito. Next is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to borrow funds in anticipation of revenue.
This is similar, but this is revenue anticipation bond. And this would be if we went out to bond and need to borrow money for the water or sewer. Been talking about doing that. If I don't need it, I don't need it, but it's in place just in case.
I move to approve.
Second.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
Aye.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
Aye.
Council President Brito.
Aye. Next ordinance, please.
Next is an ordinance authorizing the Director of Finance to borrow funds in anticipation of bonds.
And this is a bond anticipation note. This is used if we are going to build the middle school. Normally, we do short-term borrowing before we do the bond. And those are bands. We did the same thing for the high school.
Move to approve.
Can I just, so on this, it says anticipated bonds, not bands. Is that a typo?
No, it's a bond anticipation note, so BAN, so that's how you get the bond anticipation.
It's like an acronym for it.
I didn't, it's not in the line. So
Yeah, it's just an acronym. So it's a bands, TANs, and grants. That's how we refer to them. We advertise like between him and I.
so this one is,
You have a motion? Have any other further questions, Councilman? Or the council?
and we typically, yearly, we do the bands too? Right.
No, only if we think we're gonna do bond. And if we're only going to bond anticipate. Or if it's a bigger project, so you'll do short-term borrowing, like with the high school. We did 2 bond anticipation notes, and then we did the bond.
And Malcolm, just to clarify, if the voters don't approve the bond, the general election, this will not, you couldn't borrow.
Correct.
But this is contingent upon that. Moving. Before the bond gets issued, sometimes they borrow in anticipation of the bond. Like smaller, like maybe like engineering cost or. architectural cost.
And that's written out in the ordinance? As such?
It's just gives me the authority to work with bond counsel because it depends on the scope of the work. I believe in the high school, we borrowed 70 million to begin with, and we borrowed another 50 million, 8 months later, and then we went to bond for it. The reason why you don't go to bond right away is because you're gonna pay principal and interest right away. They're talking 3 years to build this, refurbish the middle school. So, better use of your money to do short-term borrowing than do it. Unless we can find a way.
Avoid paying.
Correct.
We're not borrowing anything until that referendum passes.
Right.
And
The
most
only
of
way I could do that is if we were gonna go to bond. The only reason you go to bond is if the referendum.
so why not wait till see if the referendum passes? Or
You could. Historically, we've always done it at budget time, because otherwise you may forget about it and they're scrambling at the last moment. Because it's,
millions of dollars.
I have a motion to approve.
Interest, I would second, plus interest rates are a question. Remember, at the high school, because of a delay, we had to have an emergency 8 o'clock in the morning meeting to get some of this done. So I think this is out of an abundance of caution. If there's no bond, then this doesn't happen. I think it's prudent to move forward.
same with the rings.
So we have
Yeah.
a motion. We have a second on the motion. Second. A roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Councilman Cahoon.
Aye.
Councilman Morato.
I'm gonna vote nay for now. The concern I just brought up, we don't even know if it's gonna pass in referendum yet, and I didn't get a clear answer as to what my question was, so the vote is nay.
Council Vice President Rodrick.
Aye.
Councilwoman Souza.
I'm still confused about this, to be quite honest. Did we do this for the high school also when we took out that bond?
Yes. Believe, I'd have to go back and check, but usually
Just-
when we put the budget together, there's authorization for the finance director to borrow.
That I know, it's this bond one that I just don't recall ever seeing an anticipation to a bond and there's no. I know the TANs and all of that we've done. This part is the part that's confused. I don't recall that. But it's not giving any real authorization because it still has to come back to the council to make a final determination how much we go out to bond, correct?
Yeah, I believe that's said in the question. The total not to exceed.
The only bond that's on the dot, the only bond that we could potentially borrow bank again
Mhm.
is a school bond that is on the other bonds already. This was anticipation of that pass. If that does pass, then this gives the authority for the finance director to go out for bond anticipation mode. Bridge a little bit of short-term debt.
So-
If that does not pass, he doesn't have, there's no bond for him to borrow again. It's a P four.
So why wouldn't we have just put that number on here if we know what we're anticipating the bond to?
I don't want to speak from nothing, but you don't ban the entire amount. but a portion of it.
Correct.
It's in increment, okay.
So we may borrow 60 million, then another 40. It depends on, first one we'll probably set when we work with the bond council and financial advisors. The second one, it depends on, did we meet all our targets? So you're not quite sure what you're gonna borrow.
No, okay, I get it. It didn't seem, I didn't recall us doing this for the last,
We may not have done it last.
right,
We didn't need.
Yeah.
There were no bonds last year.
right,
The last bond that we put on was like,
for the high school. But we had approved that after the referendum. I don't recall doing it.
I'd have to check.
I think that's what's throwing me off is I'm not anticipation and we don't know if we need it is I think what was throwing me off. This one. But if we don't need it, if it doesn't get proven, then this is a mute ordinance. So my vote is aye.
And Council President Brito.
Aye.
Next item is adjournment.
To adjourn?
Say aye. Anyone want to stay longer? You can stay.
So I'm gonna go do